Welcome back to my channel. Hello book besties. Today we're going through 10 books on my TBR, and it's kind of crazy because this is my 10 before the end video. This is the 10 books I'm going to read before the end of 2025. I am a mood reader, so it's not like I have to read these books. It's just more of these are the books I want to read before the end of 2025. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. The first book on my TBR is The Four Winds by Christian Hannah. I feel like I always have a Christian Hannah book on my TBR, and she's such a solid for me. Like, I've never rated one of her books less than a 4-star, which is wild. She writes historical fiction predominantly, or the ones I have read have pretty much been historical fiction. One was set in like early 2000s actually, so less so. But yeah, so good. This one is set in the 1930s against the backdrop of the Great Depression in America. We've got our main character, strong female lead vibes because that is Christian Hannah, and she is living on a farm with her family. She's basically like living her dream. She's so happy. I don't think she's had the easiest of upbringings. I don't know that. That's just the vibe I got from the blurb and what I've read about it. And yeah, she's living her dream, and then the Great Drought happens and the Dust Bowl happens and Great Depression, and she's basically forced to decide, does she try and like fight for this life that she's created for herself, or does she decide to move on and try something new? I don't know. I don't really know what's gonna happen because I'm not ready yet, obviously, but it sounds really good. And yeah, like I say, Christian Hannah is such a staple for me. If you've not read her, I really recommend her. If you do like historical fiction, check out my other video as well, which is all about my favourite historical fiction books. Yeah, that's all I've got to say on this one. I'm excited to read it. The Four Winds. Next up, we have Beasts of a Little Land by Juhae Kim, who is a Korean author, I believe, because the book is a historical fiction novel about Korea. It's set in the 1900s when Korea was occupied by Japan, and it follows several decades of Korean history. We've got this main character who is a child. She starts the book as a young girl, and her family are basically really desperate, and they sell her off to a courtesan school because they just don't have a choice because they have no money. And it basically follows her life and the things she has to endure, the challenges she faces, a friendship she makes, which then turns, I think, very complicated, and her friend chooses a very different path to her. I know very little about Korean history. I think the only thing I've read that can springs to mind when I think of Korean history is Pachinko, which again focused on the relationships between Korea and Japan. And it was very good, very good book. Definitely recommend Pachinko. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. Hopefully it teaches me a little bit more about Korean history, and hopefully I love it as much as Pachinko. Yeah, I got it on sale as well. I think I've seen it a few times in the bookstore. Been like, oh, that sounds interesting. But then I saw it and it was 50% off, and I think it's because it's slightly sun damaged. And I was like, I'll take it, 50% off. Why not? We don't mind a little bit of sun damage. So yeah, that's number 2. Book number 3 is The Square of Sevens by Laura Shepherd Robinson. And I love this cover. How pretty is it? And if we look inside, it's just so lovely. Look at this. Isn't it just so nice? I just love it when books have some extra detailing. Maybe you can see. It's so beautiful. I was actually gifted this from my friend Georgia, who is Georgia Recommends on Instagram. She's great at reviewing books, so go and check her out if you'd like someone new to follow on Bookstagram. Yeah, I'm very excited about this one. It is a fantasy novel set in Georgian England. It's a low fantasy. We've got a dad who is a fortune teller, and the main character is his daughter. It's actually quite similar. Not at all similar, but the plot of the daughter. Yeah, I'm actually realising there's a similarity between this and the last book on my TBR, which I hadn't realised. So yeah, anyway, the dad is a fortune teller, and he and his daughter travel around doing fortune telling, predominantly in Cornwall. And then he sort of is running into all these sorts of trouble. What does that sentence even mean? He is running into all sorts of trouble, and we don't know what that is. It's all very like mystical, like we see it from the daughter's POV, so we don't know what's going on, but he's got all these fears and it's all a bit mysterious. And anyway, he's like, no, this isn't safe anymore, and he ends up paying this gentleman, what did the blurb call it? He ends up paying this gentleman scholar, which I guess is a scholar who is a gentleman, to raise and look after his daughter. And she then has this upbringing in Georgian Bath, which is what we, like the illustration is of here, and becomes this very, you know, a lady of Georgian society, and she's very happy, she lives a very nice life, but she gets older and she has got all of these questions. She's like, why was my dad so mysterious? Where is he now? What's going on? I think she's got these like fortune telling powers, and she's got these questions about her life, and this book is her going to find those answers, basically. That's what I think it's about. Anyway, from what I've read on the blurb, it sounds really interesting. It sounds very different to what I've read before. When I think of like Georgian England, especially Bath, I think of like Jane Austen, which is obviously such a different vibe to this. But it's giving me like Jane Austen, if it was a fantasy. I don't know. And obviously I've not read the writing style at all either. Oh, it looks good. I'm really excited. I love making these TBR videos because I think it gets me really excited for books on my shelf, and it makes me just want to sit up and cuddle and read. Let's talk about the other book that the lovely Georgia gifted me. And what's so funny is she gifted me these when I was back in the UK, and obviously they are heavy hardbacks and I did not have time to read them when I was back in the UK. So they've made it all the way to Thailand. I didn't bring them out actually, my aunt was visiting, and I was like, hey, do you want to bring these books? Have you got space in your case? And they are like the heaviest books. So yeah. Oh well, anyway, anecdote over. This book is called First Bright Thing. Again, I just love the cover. I think I just love like gold on book covers. A lot of my notebooks I've been buying recently have got gold in too. So yeah. This is also a low fantasy novel. It is set just after World War I. And basically at the end of the war, there are some people that now have magical powers, which is very exciting. We follow 3 of these people that have been gifted these magical powers, and they form like a circus because they don't really know what to do. It's like life after the war, what do you do now? So they decide to form this circus. And this book is basically all about them on this journey of the rise of this amazing circus that they create, but also, I'm hesitating I guess here, but it's downfall or it's fight for survival. And it sort of says, I think it's like set over quite a long time period, because it says here about, in the blurb, about like World War II looming and the impact that has. So yeah, I don't know. This one I feel like less hooked in by. I like the concept, but the blurb doesn't give much away, so I'm not really sure where we're going with it. I think it's very much like outsiders, well, can they fit in? Can they make a life for themselves? So yeah, we'll see. Oh, but I did love the quote on the back. I'm gonna read it to you. It says, if you knew how dark, let me try again. If you knew how dark tomorrow would be, what would you do with your today? Why did I sound so formal when I said that? I really like that quote because I think it just makes you think like, yeah, if you don't know, if like tomorrow isn't going to be there, or like it's going to be bad, you'd go and live your best life. And that's why I'm just here for living your best life all of the time. The next book on my 10 Before the End TBR is one I don't have a physical copy of because it's a series I'm reading on Kindle Unlimited. It is from the Crowns of Nyaxia series, and I'm going to try and tell you where it comes in that series, but I don't think there's an exact reading order, just like recommended reading order. So we've got the first duology in the series, which is The Serpent of the Wings of Night, and the other book that goes with that duology. And then this is The Six Scorched Roses. This here is the book that I want to read. It's a standalone book from the Crowns of Nyaxia series, and it is recommended to read it in the middle of the first duology. So you've got the first duology here, and then you're meant to read 6 Scorched Roses here. I have already read these 2. So I didn't know that it was recommended here. So I'm now reading it like this. And I'm okay with that. Let's just talk about what it's about now. Now we know that you're meant to read it like that, but I'm reading it like this. I don't think it matters that much, but that just in case you want to read the series, maybe try and read it in the recommended order. It's a vampire dark romance. The whole series is about vampires and romance, and it's enemies to lovers. I don't really know more than that. I really enjoyed the first 2 books in the duology, and I'm enjoying this world, and I can't wait to go back to it. It's going to be weird reading. I've never read any other Christopher Broadbent, and it's going to be weird entering this world and not having the same characters, POVs, and whatever. Yeah, so I'm excited and think it's going to be very different, but maybe not. I hope it is quite different, and yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling. My next book is also from the Crowns of Nyaxia series, so this is just going to get even more complicated. So we have the first Serpent of Wings of Night duology here, and then you're recommended to read 6 Scorched Roses here, which is the next book that I am reading. And then the next book that I want to read would be like the 4th book you're meant to read, because you're meant to read it after the duology, or recommended, doesn't matter if it's not this order, but it's recommended that you read Slaying the Vampire Conqueror here. But because I've already read these 2, we are going to be reading The Crowns of Nyaxia first, then 6 Scorched Roses, and now the next book on my TBR is Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. It's another dark fantasy romance. This one is giving like Bridge Kingdom vibes, because it's this girl who's like trained and is gonna go and slay this vampire conqueror. But it's enemies to lovers. We don't know where it's going, but we know where it's going. And that's okay. Like, I don't necessarily, I think obviously you read these books for the plot, like, and I love it when they surprise me, but the fact that I know some of what's going to happen here is like, I just want the feels, and I want to be behind that romance. Hopefully it's good. We love vampire romance. Forbidden love, I'll eat it up every time. Let's change the vibe a bit with the next book on my TBR. This is probably the longest standing book on my TBR. It's been nearly a year, so it's time to read this before 2025 comes to an end. It is Questions of Travel by Michelle de Cresta, and it is a book that follows different viewpoints, different stories, mainly 2 people, I think. It's about the relationship of work, life, travel, and dreams, and fulfilling those dreams. And I feel like this is something I reflect on quite a lot in my little morning journaling sessions, because I just love traveling. It is like my favorite thing to do in the world. But like, I also love my job, and I love stability and routine, and having both of those things at the core of my personality is very like, they're opposing. They're 2 things that don't necessarily always go together. I feel like living in Bangkok gives me the best of both worlds. But yeah, I do think it's something I reflect on quite a lot. So I'm excited to see how a book does that. I've never really read anything that reflects it that well. And I think Eat, Pray, Love does a little bit. And that is one of my favourite books of all time. That's actually a memoir though, it's not a fiction novel. This also says here that it was shortlisted for 2013 Miles Franklin Literary Award. So it was, yeah, that's good too. Yeah, I'm very excited, and it's nice to have a literary fiction on there as well, because I think so far I've only had fantasy and historical fiction. Next up, we have a classic. I am behind on my goal of reading 6 classics this year, which means I probably should have 2 on my TBR. But I've read the Iliad, guys. I'm so close to the end. I've only got like 2 chapters left to go. So I'll take it, because the Iliad has been like a challenge for me, and it's been very different to something I've ever read. So I'll take it. And, you know, I've read lots of other books, so it's okay. But I've also, I think I've read, this will be my 5th classic. I've read 3 others, so I'm doing well. Anyway, it's Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. I have also read Northanger Abbey and what was the other one I read this year? Persuasion this year, and I've previously read Pride and Prejudice a couple of times and Sense and Sensibility, and Sanditon. So this is, I think, the last Jane Austen book I've got to read, which is super exciting but also quite sad. And yeah, I don't actually, what is this one about? It tells the story of a shy, vulnerable Fanny Price, brought up by rich relations at Mansfield Park with her only cousin Edmund as an ally. When a glamorous couple, Mary Crawford, is that not the name from Downton Abbey? Crawford, isn't it? Anyway, their charisma and reckless taste for flirtation dazzle everyone except Fanny, putting her strength of character to its greatest test. I feel like Jane Austen's plots are always so subtle, but so like it's just the writing that makes it, and I think it's very much about the development of the characters. So you need to connect with that main character, and they change very subtly, and it's much more about that sort of minor change in them that's actually huge for like them and the way they perceive and experience the world, rather than like this massive plot point. And I really, really do enjoy that. I think that's one of the reasons I've been enjoying a lot more literary fiction this year, because it's quite actually similar to like Japanese fiction. I feel like that does that as well. Yeah, anyway, I feel like I'm going to enjoy this. I'm very excited. I'm also happy I have this really pretty edition. It's very floppy. I think it's like an American book because it's so floppy. American edition, maybe? Or is Penguin English Library? Maybe not. It's so cool that in Bangkok we can get like American covers and English covers. You can like pick which one you prefer. But the American books do tend to be like so much more floppy. I think I want to focus on finishing series, or like not even finishing series, but continuing with series. Because again, that was a reading goal of mine for 2025 and I've done okay at it, but I've still got a lot of series to read. June Messiah is definitely on there. That's also my 2025 TBR. So that is 1000% up there. June Messiah. And this is the second book in the June, or the world of June. There's lots of different books in the world of June. I read the first one probably like 18 months, 2 years ago now. So yeah, I really need to continue with this series. I can't like clearly remember what happened in the first two enough probably to dive straight into this. The films follow the first, like the two films follow the first book only. So maybe I'll rewatch them and then read this book. But I do really want to read it. It's a lot thinner than the first book as well, which is very motivating. I imagine the font is still tiny though. Yeah. I really did enjoy the first book, so I'm looking forward to diving back into this world. And I do love the films, like Zendaya, slay. Oh. The next book, the final book on my 10 before the end, is going to be Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I've only just really finished the Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and that is probably my favourite. This is a bold statement. I think the Half-Blood Prince is probably one of my favourite Harry Potter books. It's not my favourite film, but I think the book actually might be my favourite Harry Potter book. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much more than The Order of the Phoenix, which is my least favourite film and least favourite book. Still love them, but considerably like less than the others. And yeah, it's made me really, really excited just to jump straight into the Deathly Hallows. Yeah, so Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, that's the final book on my 10 before the end. I have got a few other things I want to read as well. I'm currently reading, I want to finish the Iliad, which I'm reading at the moment, and I'm currently reading a history book, SPQR, so I want to finish that too. But yeah, that is the 10 books on my TBR before the end of the year. Have you read any of them? Are you intrigued by any of them? What do you think? Come back to the channel and check out what I think of them. I'll post some reviews of them, which is so exciting. If you have made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.